So you believe that this thing that some people call the Mandela Effect is actually real?
Oh, absolutely real.
Can you describe what it is for people who have never heard it before?
Sure, so this actually relates to my theory of the Mandela Effect and how the particle accelerator altered the weight of one electron and therefore destroyed our universe and shifted us into the universe that's directly next to it, and therefore things are different in this universe.
Have you ever stopped and thought about just how much the world has changed? And I'm not talking about hundreds of years. I'm talking about just the last 20 or 30 years. Sometimes it feels like we're living in a completely different world. When I was a kid, there were payphones everywhere. You'd see them at gas stations, stores, and on street corners. And then one day, it seemed like they just disappeared overnight. Of course, technology changed, society changed, and people changed. That's normal. But I'm talking about something deeper than that. Does the world itself feel different to you? Because I've noticed it, and apparently I'm not the only one. And there are a few different theories about when this change happened, what caused it, or whether anything actually happened at all. But the strange thing is, when you start putting some of these theories beside each other, they almost seem to connect. So let's go back to the year 2000. Everybody remembers Y2K. People were worried that the computer systems weren't going to properly recognize the year 2000. There were fears of computer failures, infrastructure problems, financial chaos, and depending on who you talk to, some people thought we were looking at the end of the world. Then midnight came and nothing happened, or at least nothing like people expected. Then came 2012. This time it was the Mayan calendar. The major cycle of the Mayan long count calendar was coming to an end. And somewhere along the way, that became connected in pop culture with another prediction. December 21st, 2012, the end of the world as we know it. The day came, the day went, and once again, nothing happened. But what if that was the wrong way of looking at it? What if something did happen? What if the world really did end in 2012 and we just didn't notice it? Now, this is where CERN comes into the picture. CERN operates the Large Hadron Collider, or the LHC as some know it, a massive particle accelerator built in a 17-mile underground ring near Geneva, Switzerland. Basically, what scientists are doing in CERN is accelerating particles to incredible speeds and colliding them together so they can study matter at the smallest scale and recreate conditions similar to those that existed shortly after the Big Bang. The Large Hadron Collider actually began operating before 2012, but 2012 became an incredibly important year at CERN because that's when the scientists announced the discovery of a particle consistent with the Higgs boson. You've probably heard another name for it, the God particle. Now, despite that nickname, the Higgs boson isn't literally some divine particle. It isn't a glue holding every atom together. It's associated with the Higgs field, a field believed to exist throughout the universe that plays a fundamental role in why certain elementary particles have mass. And that's already pretty mind-blowing. But we're about to leave established science behind, because there's a theory associated with a young man named Max Loughan. And I want to give Max credit here because this isn't my theory. Max proposed something much stranger.
An infinite number of alternate universes. Just imagine this is the start of the universe. This is our original timeline, right? But as soon as this starts, we are infinitely catapulted into an infinite number of parallel universes. And somewhere infinity down the line, here's our universe, right? And then we're constantly shifting into alternate universes as we speak. And that expansion of infinite universes is our reality as we know it in time. So therefore, if there are other universes that are next to ours, and this actually relates to my theory of the Mandela Effect and how the particle accelerator altered the weight of one electron and therefore destroyed our universe and shifted us into the universe that's directly next to it, and therefore things are different in this universe.
So you believe that this thing that some people call the Mandela Effect is actually real?
Oh, absolutely real.
Can you describe what it is for people who have never heard it before?
Sure. So the Mandela Effect is the effect of some people thought that Nelson Mandela died at a certain time, and other people remember it as different time. And this goes for a lot of other things. Star Wars, classic videos, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Everybody knows that. Well, if you actually look back to the original film, it's not Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. It's Magic Mirror on the Wall. And some people actually...
Which, of course, it's not.
It's not,
in
right.
The reality I grew up in.
Right, exactly. And I mean, some people in this reality, I guess, maybe didn't make it from our last reality, I'm thinking. I'm still trying to figure out why they don't remember it. And some people do. But anyway, though, that is the Mandela Effect, and we are living in an alternate expansion of our universes. Even in my own scientific notes, I've found rewritten signatures and things that are a little bit different from originally what I wrote.
So how did that actually happen?
His basic idea was that these extreme high energy particle collisions may have done more than scientists realized. Max talked about alternating something at an incredibly tiny level down to the properties of a particle and creating an imbalance that could produce a chain reaction throughout reality itself. And here's where this idea gets really interesting. What if our original universe was actually destroyed? Not damaged, not changed, but destroyed. But if that's true, obviously there's a problem. We're still here. So Max's theory goes another step. What if there are effectively countless parallel realities, with some of them almost distinguishable from our own? And what if when our original reality was destroyed, our consciousness somehow continued into the nearest compatible reality? There would be no explosion from our perspective, no moment where everything went black, no morning where everybody woke up and said, well, apparently the universe ended yesterday. From our perspective, life would simply continue. Yesterday happened, you went to sleep, you woke up, you went to work, everything looked normal. Almost. But what if the reality we continued into was perfectly identical to the one we left? And that's where another phenomenon enters the picture, the Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect is the name given to situations where large groups of people appear to share the same memory of something that doesn't match the documented version of events. And there are tons of examples.
I am your father. No, I am your father.
Now, there's an ordinary explanation for this. Human memory isn't perfect. Our brains reconstruct memories. People influence one another. Simple words and images get mixed together. That's one explanation. But under Max Loughan's theory, there's another. What if some of those memories aren't mistakes? What if they're memories of a reality we originally came from? What if the little differences people notice aren't random? What if they're scars left over from the transition? And now we get to the part that I've really been thinking about. Because all of these theories are usually discussed separately. CERN is one subject, Mandela Effect is another, the Mayan calendar is another, and biblical prophecy is yet another. But what if they aren't necessarily separate? What if they're different perspectives on the same event? And before I go any further, I'm not telling you this happened. This is a theory. I'm asking you to follow the idea with me. Because throughout history, different civilizations have looked at the same world and interpreted what they experience in completely different ways. And I personally believe there's another way of looking at some of these ancient religious stories. The Bible talks about other gods being worshipped by different people and civilizations. From my Christian perspective, I've wondered whether some of the beings other cultures understood as gods could instead have been fallen spiritual beings. In other words, what if two traditions aren't always describing two completely separate things? What if sometimes they're looking at the same thing from opposite sides? One civilization says that's a god. Another perspective says no, that's a fallen being that people have mistaken for a god. Same entity, different interpretation. And that's the framework I want you to keep in mind for what comes next. Because what if something similar applies here? Suppose, just for the sake of this theory, that Max was right. Suppose our reality ended and somehow we continued into another. Then suddenly the Mayan calendar story takes on a completely different meaning. What if 2012 really was the end of the world? Not the planet exploding, and not some Hollywood apocalypse. What if it was simply the end of the world as we know it? From one perspective, an ancient cycle ended. From another perspective, something happened at a fundamental level of physical reality. And from our perspective, we just kept going, like normal. Now let's take it one step further. I've talked about another theory, the age of deception. The idea that perhaps the 1,000-year period of peace described in biblical prophecy has already occurred. And what we're experiencing now is the period that comes afterward. A time of deception and the renewed influence of evil. And again, I'm not claiming that's what happened. But put that theory beside everything else. What if CERN didn't cause the age of deception? What if Max's proposed transition between realities was simply the physical side of a transition that could also be understood spiritually? Think about that. From one perspective, a universe ended. From another, an age ended. From another, an age of deception began. And maybe they're not three separate events. Maybe they're three different ways of trying to understand one event that none of us completely understand. And look at the world around you. I'm not saying the world wasn't evil before 2012. Of course it was. But ask yourself honestly, does this feel like the same world you grew up in? Because it doesn't to me. Something feels different. Society feels different. And even the people feel different. The way we communicate is different. The way we treat each other is different. Technology has transformed practically every part of our lives. Maybe that's all we're experiencing. Maybe nothing supernatural happened at all. Maybe technology changed and society changed and we've changed with it. Maybe the Mandela Effect really is nothing more than a strange way human memory works. Maybe 2012 was simply another date onto which people project their fears about the end of the world. Maybe CERN discovered exactly what its scientists said it discovered and nothing more. Those are all possibilities. But there's another possibility. Maybe something happened somewhere along the way that we didn't completely understand. Maybe the world ended without ending. Maybe we crossed from one reality or one age into another without ever realizing we'd crossed the line. Maybe those strange little inconsistencies people remember are meaningless. Or maybe they're telling us something. I can't prove CERN changed reality. I can't prove Max Loughan was right. I can't prove somebody altered a timeline. I can't prove the Mandela Effect is evidence of another universe. And I can't prove that we're living in the age of deception. But I can tell you one thing. The world doesn't feel the same. And apparently I'm not the only person who noticed. So I'll leave you with the same question I started with. Have you noticed it too? Are we living in the age of deception? Or is it just something else?